what is more sketchy than an alley like this is a man walking in an alley like this, holding up a camera, talking to himself. I'll let you decide. I was supposed to be on a flight right now, halfway to the beautiful, beautiful location of Los Angeles, California, but unfortunately, my flight got canceled. So we're ending up spending 24 hours in the beautiful country and specifically the city of Dublin. So now I'm on my way over to a card room. They have a table for me there, or a seat for me there. So let's get over there and play some poker in Dublin, Ireland. By some miracle, and by miracle I mean my flight getting canceled back home, I have to stay for 24 hours in the beautiful city of Dublin, Ireland. I don't even know if that's their accent, but nonetheless, I'm happy to be here and I'm going to make the most of my time here. I look online trying to find a poker room, and here I am in the Sports Emporium or something like that. A really fun place, a really small card room. There's only like 2 tables here, and one of the tables is a lovely game of 1-2. Here we are in the mix in Dublin, Ireland. Let's hop into today's session because it is a fun one. In this very first hand, a note, early position makes it €6 to go. I'm on the button and I have 4-3 of diamonds. A suited connector. Oh, I don't know how to describe this other than excitement on a different level. You know me and suited connectors, we get along far too well. I flick in the call. I'm here to mix it up. Action gets over to the big blind, who decides to 3-bet, denying me my opportunity and my chance at seeing a flop with such a pretty hand. The initial raiser calls, which once again invites me into this lovely gathering. How can I miss the opportunity? I flick in the call as well. We're going off to a flop where I somehow flop 2 pair, but not the good kind. It comes out 4-deuce-deuce. We do have some backdoor opportunities, so when the opponent c-bets for 35 and the opponent folds, seems like a good spot for us to make the call. The turn card comes out a 6, improving us to a gutter ball, but doesn't give us any more equity by which of a flush draw. And when our opponent double barrels for 75, this is a little bit of a tricky spot. Should we realize our equity here and make this call? We do have some outs here, but a 3 is never any good. A deuce doesn't help me either, so I feel like I'm drawing to just a 4 or a 5 here. After a bit of thinking, on my first hand, should I really go broke? But more than likely, it feels like we're just up against an overpair. Tip your cap off, make the fold, and we're on to the next hand. So after that last hand, we're definitely looking to make things happen. I'm in the €5 straddle. Late position makes it €12 to go. Action folds to me with King 4 offsuit. A pretty bad hand, but when I have a straddle out there against a 2.5 size open, I'm just going to be defending with the King high here. We're going off to the streets, baby. This is where I belong. A really interesting flop comes out. Jack 6-5. Interesting because it's probably not all that great for him. When I check it over to him, I suspect him to check back, which he does. When he checks back, it gives me the absolute green light of all green lights. I'm going to go 100 miles an hour or 200 kilometers per hour, whatever the hell they use out here, especially on the turn card that comes out the 8. Pretty good here now. There's a full rainbow board, so when the action's on me here, with my gutter ball, as well as a perceived advantage on this range of board textures or whatever the hell, I decided to throw out a small bet here of €15. It's actually about half the size of the pot. It's pretty reasonable. And my opponent is not giving it up easy. He makes the call. We're going off to a river card here that once again is probably better for me than him, as it comes a 10 of spades. Once again, we can go a couple different ways here. We can check and give up and run away and hide our tail between our legs. But what I'd rather do is try to steal this pot. I don't think my opponent's going to end up that often here on this river with any big slow plays. At these blind levels, for the most part, people are just betting the strength of their hand. And when he checks back the flop here and the board doesn't run out with any higher cards, I feel pretty safe to say I can probably get him to fold better. By better, I mean all the ace highs that exist, a hand like pocket sevens, a hand like pocket nines. All those hands are going to fold when I throw out a big meaty bet, which is what I'm going to go ahead and do. I make it €40 to go. Once again, going over the size, half the size of the pot. As we mentioned, our goal is to get all those middling pairs to fold and any random ace highs that are non-believers. Looks like our opponent is in fact a believer and makes a fold. Small pot, but definitely good for morale early. This following hand's a really fun one. Another gun decides to limp here. I'm in middle position with pocket jacks. Pocket jiggities, I don't think there's any way to misplay this hand ever. I decide to isolate pretty large here to 15 euro. Under the gun makes the call. We're going heads up to a flop that is about as good as it's ever going to get. It comes out 10, 9, 8 with 2 hearts. Not only do we flop ourselves an open ender, but we also have a backdoor flush draw just in case that isn't good enough. And beyond that, we still have an overpair with our pocket jacks, which feels like a miracle at this point. When our opponent checks it over to me, I think throwing on a c-bet here makes the most sense. I don't even think I need to go all that big here because there's not many turn cards we dislike. I'd make a bet of 15 euro, to which my opponent makes a call. We're going off to a turn card that's not my favorite. It's probably the one bad turn card in the deck, as it comes out the ace of hearts. Brings in that front door flush that we don't love, and it also brings in that dreaded ace. At this point, our opponent once again decides to check it over to me, and I'm kind of in between in this hand here. I think obviously the best thing to do at this point is to just check. We can improve by way of a straight or a flush on this river, and bloating the size of the pot with what is now not that great of a hand is probably a bad idea, but hindsight's 20/20. I make another bet of 30 euro. Once again, I don't really know what I'm accomplishing here. I don't get value from worse all that often, outside of maybe a hand like king 10 or queen 10. But outside of that, not a whole lot is probably folding. So, I don't know. We're living in the world of the future, but in the present past, that's what I did. Our opponent makes a call. We're going off to a river card that comes out the ace of diamonds. And now things get really weird when my opponent decides to lead out for 50 euro. Again, the one thing I have to continue to remind myself in this challenge is that people at these blind levels are just not that likely to make big river bluffs. Do I think by any small chance my opponent can ever be going for value with the hand that's worse than pocket jacks? Maybe, just maybe he gets carried away with the hand like king 10. But when that front door flush draw comes in and the ace pairs on the river, I just don't see any way that that is realistically possible. So that just leaves me with a bunch of flushes and maybe random floats that contain an ace. So after a bit of thinking, and although I might have slightly misplayed that hand on the turn, I think the best thing to do here is just make the fold. It sucks because I'm getting a pretty decent price, but at the end of the day, if I want to do anything in this bankroll challenge, it's to play reasonably decent poker. We can get foolish pre-flop, we can even get a little creative post-flop, but one thing I can't be doing is making calls when I know I'm probably behind. So I reluctantly fold. I jokingly mentioned to my opponent that if he can fold without showing an ace, I'd give him 25 bucks, but he shrugs his shoulders, gives me a little bit of a sly smile, and flashes the ace to me. So somehow he has an ace there. I was honestly expecting more of a flush, but either way, happy we made a good fold. Trying to shake it off like Taylor Swift. We're moving on to this next hand where there's like 3 or 4 limps when the action gets to me in the small blind and the $5 straddle is on. We look down at his offsuit ace 3. I decided just flicking the call here. Don't think I'm going to be getting isolated all that often from the straddle, which ends up being true as they check their option. We're going off to a flop where we end up with top pair on a fairly interesting board texture where there's going to be some straight draws to be had by many different ways. Luckily enough, the action ends up checking through and the turn card comes out the king. At this point, with about $25 or $30 in the middle, or I should say euros, I keep misspeaking that, but you get what I'm trying to say. I decide to throw out a bet of 20 euro. My goal here is to get called by all those hands like king, queen, those pair plus straight draws, or even open-ended straight draws like 8-9, as well as non-believing middle pairs. Looks like that might be the case when the button just calls here, and the river card comes out the 10. This is a really interesting card for a couple of reasons. One, my kicker now improves to a king, which I love, but it also means that all other aces also improve to aces, tens, and a king kicker. It's good because I now chop with all the aces that are better than me, but it's even better because I think I can get all of those chopped aces now to make a big fold if I go for a really big bet. I can definitely be fairly uncapped here. We all limped here pre-flop. I'll never have aces. I'll never have kings. I'll never have pocket tens, but I can still have pocket sevens sometimes for a full house, and I can still have a hand like king 10 offsuit here that's a full house, and once again, we can still pretty credibly have all the straights. After a little bit of thinking, I decide to go for gusto. I make a massive bet here for €100, looking to get our opponent to fold a chop, and he doesn't do that, and he doesn't call either. He raises to €240. Well, as you can see from this video here, there's not much more to talk about. I couldn't have folded any faster. Looks like my situation backfired. There was only one hand that improved on the river that my opponent could ever have, and that's king 10. Unfortunate that we ended up running up into it, but once again, I like where my head was at, and I like the idea and the thought process. Just didn't work out this time around. Things have been fairly rough for us to this point, and luckily we find a remedy by way of Big Slick. After a couple of limps, I look down at Big Slick, baby. It's time to isolate to 15. The first limper makes a call, and that is it. We're going heads up to a flop that we almost do too well on. It comes out ace king 5. It's a fully rainbow board here. There's a couple straight draws to worry about, but when the action checks over to me, it's going to be really, really hard to get hands to continue here for a big sizing. So I throw out a small C bet, to which my opponent luckily calls. The turn card comes out the deuce of clubs. Seems like a pretty innocuous card for several reasons, mostly because a deuce has never changed anything. Norman Chad taught us that. When my opponent checks for a second time, I think we can clearly go for some value. At this point, I'd probably be sizing up with my bluffs, so why not do it with my value? I bet pretty big here now, going for $30 into a pot of around 50. And out of nowhere, my opponent check raises all in for €150. Honestly, this is never a bluff at this blind level. It just isn't. So, although I'm never folding and I snap call, it's a little bit worrisome, but we flick in the call. We're happy to do so. The river card comes out the 8 of spades, and this pretty big pot of nearly €400 ballooned up fairly quickly. I don't want to show my hand until my opponent shows his, as it is his turn to show, as he was the last aggressor. And what will you know? It's an absolute cooler, but luckily I end up on the right side of the cooler this time around, as my opponent has an inferior 2 pair. Ace deuce of hearts is no good, sir. We show our ace king, and we do win a sizable pot to finally get us heading in the right direction. Feels like the first time this entire Europe trip it's happened, but here we go, baby. For the last time in today's video, I will be bringing you a hand that doesn't have any video to accompany it. But to be quite honest, these gentlemen here were an absolute blast. I was enjoying myself actually playing the game of poker, but it's an important hand to go over, so I didn't think I should have left it out. The cutoff opens for a really big sizing of €12, and I'm on the button, and I look down at Queen 10 of hearts. Great hand to continue with here, so I go ahead and make the call. The big blind calls as well, and that early position limper calls as well. 4 ways to a flop that comes out giving me top pair on a really coordinated board, as it does have a flush draw as well as a bunch of straight draws as well. Our opponent c-bets for €20. With the action on me here, I can go a couple of different ways. I think calling here is probably the best option, as it keeps all of our opponent's semi-bluffs in, but raising also has some of its merits, as it will remove the factor of those opponents behind us floating or over-calling with big draws. But in real time, I just decide to flick in the call. Everyone else folds luckily, and we're going off heads up to a turn card that comes out the 8 of spades. Seems like a pretty good card to me, as it doesn't change a whole lot here. If I was ahead, I'm probably still ahead, and if I was behind, I'm probably still behind. The only weird thing is my opponent continues to bet here for €50. I mean, I don't love it. I don't think that he'd be bluffing here. And I also don't think he should be betting on this turn card, as it pairs a card that I'm probably going to be the one to have. I'm going to have all the 7-8, all the 8-9 suited. And if you guys know me well enough, I'll probably have 6-8 and 10-8 suited as well. All that to be said, my opponent only has about $58-ish behind this bet. So I feel like if I'm going to go with it, I should probably just stick it in myself and keep going with it. But in actuality, as we talked about earlier in that pocket jacks hand, in these spots, people are just not bluffing enough. And it just comes down to that simple fact. There's a small chance I will be, in the context of this current hand, that my opponent can still be semi-bluffing with a hand like ace-king of clubs, ace-queen of clubs, ace-jack of clubs, but that is still a little unlikely, as for the most part, when boards do pair, people tend to start checking their flush draws. All that to be said, I don't do anything there. I don't listen to future Kieran. Everything in hindsight is just so much clearer, but in real time, I just go all in for €58 more, which is a grand total of 108. Our opponent snap calls, beats me in the pot, and shows 7-8 of clubs. He did have quite a few outs, and he did end up picking off one of the outs that I just didn't see. We're going off to river. That is inconsequential because it does not improve me. Really unfortunate there to have lost as much as I did. Feels like a spot that it just didn't need to happen. Wrapping things up, we have one final fun hand to go over. A lead position limps, and I look down at the old ace-8 offsuit. If you say it fast enough, it almost sounds like aces. We make it €15 to go. The big blind cold calls. Who's the absolute classic Euro? Headphones, a hoodie. Hasn't said a word since I've been here for 3 hours. The rest of the table is quite the contrary. They're wonderful and have been so much fun to play with. But shout out to this guy. This is how he has fun playing poker, and you can't take anything away from him. I am a guest in these streets, so here we go. Heads up to a flop that comes out 10-5 deuce, rainbow. With the action checked over to me, I throw out a c-bet of 15, to which my opponent calls. The turn card now comes out the 4 of clubs. A full rainbow board does not change a whole lot here. When the action checks over to me, I think the double barrel is in order. I'd be doing this with aces, kings, queens, jacks. I'd probably be doing with ace-10 suited as well, so why not do it when I have a bluff? My opponent does end up making the call after a bit of thinking, and the river card comes out the king of clubs. When my opponent checks to me once again, now things are a little trickier. Going for value on this river card for a big sizing wouldn't make much sense outside of holding a hand like king 10, aces or kings, or ace king. Outside of those hands, I'm probably going for some value still with a hand like king queens or jacks sometimes, but it wouldn't be for a really large sizing, so I'm in between how big I should make it. I end up deciding that it's probably best to go around half the size of the pot. I make it €60 to go. Looking to get folds from all 10s here, all middling pairs like 7s, 8s, 9s. But unfortunately for us, our opponent ends up looking us up, and looking us up he does. Nearly spitting in my face after he slam dunks the old 4-3 offsuit in our face, calling us down with just a 4. I mean, you just got to give props where it's due. Absolutely owned me, and that's kind of how our Euro trip has come along. That will bring an absolute abrupt but very fair ending to our lovely time here abroad. It was an absolutely wonderful time meeting everyone abroad. A huge shout out to you guys for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, but let's start over to me after the fact to see how we feel.
I can do this with my eyes closed. It's too easy. Too easy. I can do this with my eyes closed. It's too easy. Too easy. It's too easy. I've been there, done it, seen it. Boy, all that like Keenan. Still got crack, they fiendin'. Flow still hot like Phoenix. Shine so bright, I'm gleaming. This off top, I'm tweaking.
Well, that is officially gonna bring a close to our lovely abroad journey here in Europe. It was a lot of fun, if I do say so myself. Unfortunately, the poker results did not translate, but hey, I did go to their home court and I did give it a fair battle, and we did the best we could. I'm really sorry that I couldn't find anything larger to play, but at the end of the day, you guys always talk about being able to relate to the content, and today this is pretty relatable. I feel like we played 50 cent $1, we played $1 $2, and then I think 5-5. So we played the range of different experiences here, and today was not great though. We ended up losing about 250 euro, somewhere in that realm. Not a great trip overall. We're down, I think, on this trip like somewhere in the neighborhood of like 800 or 900, but you know, it is what it is. It was an opportunity of a lifetime. Something I'll remember for the rest of my life was getting a chance to do this. So that is going to do it for me. Tomorrow we have an early flight out back to Los Angeles, back to where I belong, back to the people I'm most comfortable around in my family. Thank you guys so much for watching the videos. I'll see you guys very soon. Stay happy, stay healthy, more importantly, we're going to table feel. Deuces.
I can do this with my eyes closed.